Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. This is a very important video. It is about the video timeline. I'll try to keep this under 15 minutes or so. I have quite a few notes though, but we're going to kind of go over the key stuff here. And keep in mind they change the sound of my voice. Sometimes it's very obvious, but in every video, they change the sound of my voice. They changed my look in the videos, and the images as well. So not just the images, but the videos, the motion videos as well. Okay. So in 2009, I made my first official video where I bring up that the problem is they keep giving power to evil people instead of righteous people, and they're lying about the history of Egypt and things that are connected to it. Okay. And around the same year, I made some other videos where I talk about how they won't give the power to a wise and righteous king. And in 2011 or so, it's hard to say the date because the first channel came down, I made a video where I said that it's our research together that can expose this, and if people don't take action and organize and what have you, that all hell is going to break loose. And I eventually made a song in like 2015 where I said, if you leave these dogs in charge, we're headed for disaster. And lo and behold, homelessness, the coronavirus, I was right for many, many reasons. In 2015, in 2012, I made my 2012 May challenge, and there's a lot of other things that happened that are important as well. I released a video where I showed that they were covertly drugging me. I showed evidence of that. Back then, I'm just going to go ahead and say, back then I used to smoke marijuana. I haven't smoked marijuana in a long time. That's neither here nor there. Ask everyone in California. It doesn't affect your ability to see what's going on in life. Very few people go crazy from smoking marijuana. Very few. Okay. I never went crazy from smoking marijuana. I never really went crazy. I've been covertly drugged. I've acted weird at times. I've been thrown off, but I never went truly crazy. So, yeah, and I showed that, that not only were they drugging the food and the drinks at the various places I would go to a lot of drive-thrus, but they were also drugging the weed. Okay. Now in 2015, I made my Men of Honor series. And in 2017, on my covertly drugged channel, I was covertly drugged so much that 8 years ago, I made a channel called Covertly Drugged. And I was complaining about the covert drugging since 2012, which is 13 years ago. 13 years ago. Almost to the month, almost exactly. Okay. I've been complaining about being covertly drugged and persecuted. In my top martial arts challenge in 2013, I bring up that I'm being persecuted for my social, political, and economic views, and religious views especially, which I kind of compile into the term political views. But it's clear what I'm talking about. Okay. What I'm talking about is clear. So in 2015, there's my Men of Honor series. That's key here. That's 10 years ago. Okay, I made a whole series about honor and the principles of honor and so on and so forth. And I've been talking about those principles basically the whole time, since 2009, when I started making videos. So again, the main point of this video here is to show you some, evidence of my old channels. Keep in mind, again, they're changing the way I look. There's one picture I intend to post of me flexing back in 2012. You can tell it's the most impressive martial art picture ever taken, even at this point. When you consider how tall I am, how great shape I'm in, and you consider, my top martial arts challenge, when you consider these things, my life course, my life philosophy, you can tell that I've been forged with focused moral intensity, and that my body's the most fit for martial art movements, right? Lateral movements, agility, dexterity, focus, timing. You can tell that I'm the most physically fit, most divinely, physically, spiritually, mentally fit for martial arts ever possible, because of tech, breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains, making it so no one can one-up me in the future, and first and foremost because that was God's choice. Okay. So on January 3rd, 2017, I made a video called Valor, Courage, Morality, and Focus, where it also had, if I remember correctly, I'm not looking at it right now, or some It had me doing strikes, martial arts strikes at world record speed. And keep in mind, they slowed down the videos. They've changed my look. They made it so I look like, like a chubby guy at times. They made it so I look weird or gay or thrown off or bipolar. They made it look very, very weird. And there's people who know me, who've been on record saying, yes, they're persecuting me. Yes, I'm not making this stuff up. Okay? People saying that I'm the most normal. One person said I'm the most normal person they've ever met. And they lived in San Jose at the time, in the most populated apartment complex on El Rancho Verde, in the 11th or so most populated city in America. So it's preposterous to think that I'm magically mentally ill. It's insane. Nothing's crazier than that. So again, valor, courage, morality, focus, concentration, wisdom. Okay. I made another video where I said pursuing wealth is pursuing cowardice. Another video about honor and sacred morality. Around that time, I used to talk about sacred morality. These days, I refer to it as universal pinpointing moral precision and focused moral intensity. I've referred to it different ways, okay, in the past, right? Christian morality, what have you. But I've refined my definition of it and how I describe it, and I've also changed the way I label it, because it transcends any organized religion set up by man. This is something that is more divine than the word Christian conveys, and it's more true than the word Christian conveys. The word Christian is like a trance-like state kind of word, is what I found over the years, and I think most people would agree about that, even most Christians. That's why they say broad is the way to destruction, narrow is the way to life, and there's billions of Christians, like 2.5 billion Christians in the world. So most of them, according to the Bible itself, are on the broad path to destruction. Therefore, the word Christian is like a watered-down, dilute term. It's how it's being used, what have you. Also brought up that the God of science the God of science is Satan. Okay, and the non-black martial arts are using their network to suppress us, is how I put it. My videos had quite a bit of racial themes in the past, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, because I live in a place that's like 2% black. The people persecuting me are disproportionately people from other races. Like America's like 13%, 12% black, and maybe 1 in 20 or 1 in 30, 1 in 50, 1 in 100 people persecuting me are black. Okay, so and these things, the persecution has racial connotations. They harass me in racial ways, what have you. That's also how I reported it to law enforcement. Okay, so I bring up martial art truths versus Masonic illusion trick philosophy. And sparring shows who's the most proficient in actual martial arts combat. Proficient and efficient, those words are connected. I bring up evil Western materialism shows in their eye, energy, expression, and more. And again, every nation in the world is wrong. I chastise every nation and every race in my videos, in every other culture. I bring up in the title that martial arts are mentally, spiritually, physically, traditionally, and culturally and socially superior. Okay, true martial arts. Talk about the enemy of God in 60 seconds. I say Ebo Prince, which is me, and I'm the King of Kings, right? This is before I realized I was Christ, which was in 2020, and that's part of the purpose of this video, to show you that the videos have not changed over the years. Since 2009, they've been consistent, except for me realizing I'm Christ at some point in 2019 or 2020. I think it's 2020. So I put Ebo Prince too wise for the unwise to follow. That's why people aren't following me, because they're unwise. Like the song goes, right? Wise man follows him. He rose again. Wise men follow him, right? Thank God for the renegades, that song. Okay, the Spirit of Christ. I talk about the Spirit of Christ versus the spirit that other people are in, which is not my spirit, which is not the Spirit of Christ. I'm in the Spirit of Christ, they're not. I made a video where it says I'm doing what I know is right, and I raised the challenge to $10,000. During that time, I raised it again to $17,000. Eventually, I raised it to $50,000 that year, and eventually, over time, I raised it to $100,000 or so, where we're at now, and $100 million, I think, if I'm compensated. Okay, so you pay nothing if you lose. $50 just to show. Okay, so made another video title. It says, "A man who's rejected by the harlot cannot reject himself." Let's just read titles here and let's wrap this up. Okay, during that year, I made a specific $100,000 sparring challenge to Jewish and Italian people. It had to do with the church and the clash with the church and how people were provoking me, and it led me to make that specific challenge. I'm not racist against any group. I judge people according to their deeds as individuals and as groups. But that occurred, and that was important for me to make that video, and it's important for me to highlight why that occurred. Also made a video titled, "African Expression Purposely Confused with Bipolar Disorder. I will never let white cults control my mind, body, soul, or spirit." Okay, altogether, they're not doing that. They're messing up my body, but they're not controlling my mind, body, soul, and spirit. I was set up on April 20th, 2017. Okay. Another video titled, "The ability to strike lightly and move faster is harder than the ability to hit harder." Anyone can lift weights and hit hard. Only one person can move at the fastest speed ever and strike lightly or hard depending on what they feel like doing. Light contact sparring or striking someone hard and effectively, what have you. Okay. So part 2, combos for public psych meds throw me off as usual. Partial timeline of the psychiatric sabotage of the top martial artist. Okay. So there's a lot of discussion of being sabotaged, discussion of morality. The last 5 years of my system has really taken me to the next level despite sabotage. Okay, I made a video about transferable chi energy, transferable light energy. Okay. Let there be the light from God. Light temple, I have the chi, and the chi is with me and is in me. I talked about how Star Wars is superimposed on me, right, in more than one way. The Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker, Horus the Skywalker. Okay. Now, some people might think it's corny, but it's just pointing out the facts here, and it's an important fact. And the real idea that it's superimposed on is very potent and very serious. Okay, let's just go ahead and talk about 2019 and 2020. So in 2019, I made a video titled, "Sabotage Form Explanation Martial Arts Heroism." Old striking vids, the Black Panthers of martial artist, difference between Horus that made them hide. I give myself a title, Horus that made them hide, and them benefiting from sabotage, right? What are the differences between Horus that made them hide and them benefiting from sabotage? Circus clown cultures hijacking all martial arts. In 2020, I said, "Rally to me as a matter of principle." Okay, and an example of covertly drugged eyes. Striking versus trapping. I have a lot of very interesting video titles. I think they're few of me, making it hard for me to kind of read my notes and to kind of get to the ones that have the interesting titles, even though some are highlighted. Here's another one. The Lord scoffs at their ill-gotten gains. Aries, Haro Aries, the evil sky being, what have you. So let me just end it there. The point is that my videos are consistent, right? You have the 2009 where I'm talking about morality and them cheating and them lying about history. 2012, I say everyone should get together. I'm making the series about the secret societies and the deep state and the social clubs and the corporate partnerships and transnational corporations and so on and so forth that are abusing everybody, and how we need to get together and take them on. Other people are just talking about it, but they're not trying to get together. 2015, I talk about my Men of Honor series. 2017, the Sacred Morality. 2020, I start talking about, focus, moral intensity, righteous indignation, morality versus insanity. Morality meaning more reality. And so you basically get the same sort of topics, right? Christianity, I read from the Bible in 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, in 2020, I make videos about Proverbs. I read some Proverbs quotes there, some Psalms, some quotes from Psalms, some scriptures from, some verses from Psalms. what have you. And you can tell that I'm doing this through sabotage. My top martial arts challenge through sabotage. I graduate college through sabotage. So there's an example of something you can really sink your teeth into if you have your doubts, right? That I graduated college through sabotage while making these videos, while they're accusing me of being mentally ill and having the most serious of mental disorders, which is schizophrenia, right? And schizophrenic, being schizoaffective is just like it. They're accusing me of these things. They had me on powerful antipsychotics at one point, briefly. And for the most part, I'm not on psych meds when I'm going to college, and I graduate college. And the videos I make on psych meds are far worse than the ones that I make off psych meds, except for maybe during a very short period of time where I say that they're drugging me intensely. So the evidence is overwhelming. I also made a video that was like 15 minutes showing you the timeline of the psychiatric drugging, and you can see that I'm thrown way off, right? I'm stumbling, and this is after the initial side effects, on psych meds for like several months. Not something that's just what happens when you start taking medication, but over time, it's just throwing me off, it's ruining my life, making it harder for me to think, making it harder for me to do martial arts, what have you. And so they tried to use that. They were trying to make it so that it would seem that I was magically better off on fucking when I wasn't better off on, mind you, which is psych meds, okay, than off it. And so I had to scramble to kind of present the evidence that made it clear, including the 23 witnesses, that made it clear that that wasn't the case, that they were using that like they use it historically. Look up the political abuse of psychiatry, right? Iona State Hospital, the Rosenhan experiment, okay, drapetomania. They have a long history of trying to play people out using psychiatry and the quote-unquote experts, right? And I even said before I realized I was Christ, I was like, they probably would put Christ on psych meds, and lo and behold, I was Christ, and I am Christ, and they put me on psych meds and try to discredit me that way. And they try to radicalize me. They try to make me a Muslim extremist, right? Here was somebody who was talking about how much I resent northern Nigerians who happen to be Muslims for the Nigerian Civil War, and how I've been a Christian, very serious Christian for a long time, and they were trying to turn me into a Muslim extremist with persecuting me using America and the church turning their back on me and so on and so forth. And they're trying to use that to make me a Muslim extremist, and to then say, hey, that's why we're doing this psyop on them. Okay. And boy, have they been extremely debunked since then. Extremely debunked. I've even taken down videos I've overkilled. And keep in mind, it was like 2015 or so. They were targeting me all my life. And it became obvious in 2011. So the timeline doesn't add up. They never had a reason to single me out for a psychological operation. Write that down. The evidence is overwhelming. They were targeting me before 2015 when I made those controversial videos. They were a result of them trying to radicalize me and then putting people in the comments who were trying to encourage me. There were other people in the comments who were saying, hey, you're wrong about that. Don't go down that path. There was like 20 people in the comments trying to encourage me. And they were clearly gang stalkers. They were clearly PSYOP personnel. They were clearly CIA assets. Okay? They were trying to, and every time I'd say something that wasn't something that Muslim terrorists would approve of, they were trying to say, no, don't say that. No, we don't do it that way. They were trying to make me a fucking terrorist, okay? Not only were they weaponizing the intelligence apparatus and everyone who's running the PSYOP, okay, they were using it to the point of trying to make me a terrorist, and this is why there's so many mass shootings. I can't say with certainty that every mass shooting is a result of them singling them out with a PSYOP, but I can say with certainty that countless of them are a result of that. Thank you.